Welcome to the Geek Cabal channel. I'm Bob,
I'm Jim.
and you're about to watch a clip from one of our longer podcast videos since they've been running about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We splice clips out. If you like the whole thing, it'll be linked to in the description. Hopefully, you'll watch it too. It's up to you, though. And since this is YouTube, you know how it goes. If you like what you like here, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But otherwise, hope you enjoy the clip. And which leads to the next movie, Aliens, the James Cameron film. Now I watched the longer cut. I don't remember if it's a director's cut or special edition, how they define it, but this one includes several scenes that were cut out. And I actually paid normally I just put these movies on in the background while I'm doing something on the computer. I paid a lot of attention to this movie, and it's been a while since I watched it, and I tried to actually take a more critical eye to it this time. And we might end up doing just a whole video just about this, but just some notes here real quick. I feel that it was a mistake to cut all those scenes out. It definitely makes it a better movie, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if that was Cameron's idea or if that was studio executive meddling or what, but
Which it was a lot more back then, because that's the thing nowadays is that like every movie feels like it has to be 2.5 hours at least, and there was 80s and 90s. You probably before that, but at least me growing up 80s and 90s, they cut all the stuff out a lot of times in movies because they had a set runtime that they had to
yeah,
be.
yeah. Definitely mid to late 90s, the target goal was 90 minutes because you could get at least one more screening during the day in the theaters, was the idea.
And and I get that to a point, but at the same time, you're sacrificing stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
You're taking stuff out that could be good. Sometimes you are trimming the fat where it's not needed either. Where it's just like, oh, there's going to be this drug out scene where these people are just talking. Adds nothing to the movie. Adds nothing to these characters' development. It's just them.
We experienced a little bit of that recently.
I mean, we experience it every time we do a podcast, but
Well, I meant in Ahsoka, but because there's a lot of just standing around and conversations that go nowhere, and like there was wasted potential there. We'll get to that eventually. Uh, but anyway, I can't. I'm sure you've all heard because based on our analytics, the folks listening to this are definitely of the age they should have already seen Aliens. But if you haven't, it is quite possibly one of the best action movies ever made, just like bar none. Which is amazing because the first Alien movies is one of the best horror movies ever made, and James Cameron's just like horror. Ha! How about action with a dash of horror? Let's go with that. And then the rest of the franchise just kind of trails off. But this is peak Cameron here, in my opinion. This or Terminator 2, probably. Uh, and I have a few issues with Cameron, but not for his directorial skills. Like the man definitely knows what the hell he's doing. Amazing. He used to be a truck driver. They went to work for Roger Corman, who, for those of you who don't know Roger Corman, that man is like 94 years old and has 3 movies in production right now. He will work until the day he dies.
yeah,
He just produces movies nonstop, and he knows how to stretch a dollar. Like he's a guy you could bring him $1 million, he will deliver you a movie and possibly change.
it's
It
just
might not be a great movie.
it's just unfortunate we never got his Fantastic Four though.
Yeah, we need to do a video about that. It's the most faithful adaptation so far. So I'm not even joking. Um, but yeah, so the thing about Roger Corman though, he's a workaholic, makes all kinds of movies, makes a bunch of cheap movies, but everyone in Hollywood actually respects him because he knows his craft. Yeah, the movies kind of look cheap, but he knows how to do it, how to make it happen.
Unlike I think Bowl. I'm trying to think what his name is.
Uwe Boll, yeah,
Where he,
that's a whole other topic.
where
But
he can make movies cheap but not good.
no, one of his movies is actually decent. It's one that's not based on a video game. It's called Tunnel Rats. It's set in Vietnam. The guys that go into the tunnels to fight the Vietnamese. Yeah, that movie is actually good, or at least acceptable. But I think it was actually on the good end. All of his video game movies are trash.
Which shouldn't be hard to make a video game movie. I mean, it truly shouldn't
I'm,
be.
I'm given to understand that the people that underwrote his movies, that put up the money, essentially he was running a scam like in the producers. Like he was making movies that he knew were going to fail, or at least his investors knew they were going to fail, and that was going to somehow benefit them more than the money they were putting in because of German tax laws. They've since closed that loophole. That's why I haven't seen a lot of work from him lately. And the rest of the video game industry got wise to him. We're like, we're not selling our rights to you. You know, you will butcher them.
Yep.
But anyway, so like for Roger Corman, like people that work for him, if they go try working in the studio, like the studios call him up. You know, like Roger's this guy know what they're talking about. And if Roger says yes, they'll hire him because like all kinds of people worked for Roger Corman. Jack Nicholson used to work for him writing movies. Like I mentioned, James Cameron, he was a truck driver. Bill Paxton used to work for him. Gail Ann Hurd, the big producer, she used to work for him. All kinds of people started with him. But like the stuff that James Cameron did for Aliens, like some of the puppeteer work for like the Queen, he was actually working on that, like the prototype for that idea, while he was working for Roger Corman. Like there's like some short films that are out there of him, like stuff he was doing in his garage and stuff, and you can see where that became the Queen. But anyway, the special edition, for those of you who haven't seen it, the primary thing it includes is towards the beginning, you find out that Ellen Ripley had a daughter. I say had because she died while Ripley was off in space because she was frozen for 57 years. And her daughter died at the age of like 66.
Yes, and if you haven't seen my retrospective on Alien Isolation, you actually follow her daughter in that, and you know it may not be part of the official timeline, but I think it should, and I think it's movie worthy as well. So
Yes, which we talked about that in our franchise fixes for Alien, which hopefully you should also watch because I fully endorse this becoming the official version of the movie. And definitely from what Jim has told me, Alien Isolation should definitely become part of the canon for sure, if it's not already.
yeah, and the great thing about it is it fits nicely in there because it's while she's like you said frozen
Yeah.
in sleep or whatever, so you don't have to have any of the original characters in there. They could be just random people because obviously in Alien everyone died.
Yeah.
So the only people that got off there was the cat and
Yeah.
and Ellen.
Yeah.
So
the alien briefly, but he didn't have a ticket, so he had to go.
yes, he's probably still living in space somewhere.
Yeah, they never established that no air kills them, actually, so maybe.
Well,
floating around waiting for the Queen from Aliens, and she's floating out in space, too.
And in Alien Isolation, they do go and put that down that they're able to live outside the space station. So,
oh, there you go.
Yeah. Anyways.
But, yeah, so that you have that scene, and then from that scene, you have a later scene with Newt, where they're in the med lab. There's part of the conversation gets cut out because Newt asks her if she had a kid, and she says yeah, but she's gone. And Newt's like, "You mean died?" She's like, yeah. And there's also a later scene. I want to say it's right before Ripley goes back in to rescue Newt. She says something to Hicks and calls him Hicks, and he's like, "No, it's Dwayne." Finally tells her his first name, and then she's like, "I'm Ellen." And like, I don't know why that little bit was cut because it had nothing to do with the other parts, but it was. That also cuts out seeing the people go to the crash ship. It's Newt's parents are the ones that go out there, and you get to see some of the people in the colony. It's the only time you get to see them. So it would have been nice to leave that in to put a face to the destruction that's going to happen off screen, and then we see the aftermath of. And then there's the auto guns that are set up. There's about probably 5-6 minutes of movie dedicated just to those. The fact they got them out of the APC and how many rounds they got for them, then actually setting them up and letting them go to town, and like that whole thing really builds suspense for the later battle against the aliens because they sit there and they totally exhaust the rounds from 3 of the 4 guns, and the one has like 10 bullets left in it when the aliens finally back off, and you realize just how many aliens had to have been trying to storm the place to burn through that many rounds, and the fact that like that still didn't take all of them out.
Yeah.
And so so you have these scenes that add depth to the movie, but just overall, even way more than The Shadow, the movie is exceptionally well made. Like in a modern movie, we would see the protagonist. I hate to say this, but especially if it's a female protagonist, would just like randomly come up with powers or abilities to overcome the foe at the end, or it's someone that she massively outclasses anyway.
Talk about Ellen does. It's called the power of duct tape.
So,
Because she
uh,
duct tapes all of the weapons together.
yeah.
So
But this one, it's piece by piece builds up so the end makes sense. Because after she gets back, after she's woken up, they strip her of her flight license, and so the only thing she can do is work in the docks. And they talk about that initially whenever Burke and Gorman come to see her to try to convince her to leave. And Burke's like, "Oh, running power loaders and class 2 license." And she's like, "Yeah, what of it?" And he's like, "No, it's fine work, you know." And then when they're aboard the Sulaco, yeah, it's the
yeah,
Sulaco. I was confused because the other one's the Nostromo.
yes,
Uh, Not to be confused with the Prometheus or the Covenant. But she's like, "Hey, I can run one of these power lifters. Like, can I help you guys?" And you get to see the fact that yes, she can, at least to the point that Apone thinks it's fine. So we establish now that she has the skills to use this thing. And so then we come down to the end. And it's like, what the hell is she going to fight the queen with? And it's like, oh right, she can actually use this thing, as we have established by showing that she can do it. That's competent filmmaking. Is showing that your characters can do things so that the finale, when they finally just like go to town on somebody, makes sense, you know. But the other thing is, I think those missing scenes unfortunately remove, like, most of the context is still there, but with those deleted scenes, there's more depth to her relationship with Newt. You can tell that very clearly. It's, I've lost my daughter. I'm now presented with this other little girl. I'm not going to let her die too. You know?
yeah, for sure. And well, and she lost her parents, so
Yeah.
she sees a mother.
Right. But then there's also another layer of complexity I don't think a lot of people consider. That's also what the alien queen is doing. Ripley just murdered all of her kids, and now she's like, I'm coming to kill you, but I'm going to kill your kid first, just because I can. You know? So it's a battle between essentially scorned women, and like, but it makes sense. They're fighting for their kids. Like, it's the maternal instinct. You
Yeah,
know? It's the same thing with Sarah Connor. You know? We understand why Sarah's, being the badass, because she's trying to protect John. It's not just that she's like, oh, I'm going to pretend to be a man. It's like, no, I have a reason to do this. I don't trust anyone else to do it. In Sarah Connor's case, uh, and so in Ripley's case, like, and it's also, she's not shown to be competent at the expense of the other characters. Like, Hicks is shown to be quite competent. Gorman's incompetent, but we established that going in. Like, this is like his second combat mission, so we know things aren't going to work out for Gorman. But then we even have like Vasquez. Vasquez is a badass too. Even like Hudson's the only person that jokes about her, and she fires right back. Like his whole like, "Hey Vasquez, anyone ever mistake you for a man?" And she's like, "No, you." Funny thing about Vasquez though, folks, the woman that plays her, not Hispanic, like, not even a little bit. Her name's Jeanette Goldstein, and
she Jewish.
I believe so, yeah. But
I'm just saying with the name.
she's about, like, now she's about as pale as this table right here. I have no idea how they did that. Like, I'm assuming she was just really tanned at the time,
Or spray tan.
or maybe, yeah. But yeah, she's not Hispanic. Nowadays, she sells high end lingerie in Hollywood. She doesn't act much anymore, but she's also in Terminator 2. She's John's adopted mom,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and she's also in Titanic. She's a maid or something on board the ship, but her kids are on there too. So at the very end, she's like telling them a story or something as the ship's going down. So obviously, Cameron thinks she can act, so keeps casting her in things. But she's also in Near Dark, which is a vampire movie by Kathleen Bigelow that had the misfortune of coming out the same time as The Lost Boys. And The Lost Boys crushed it at the box office. But she's in it. Lance Henriksen's in it. And Hicks, Bill Paxton, is also in it. So, like, a third of the cast of Aliens is also in this vampire movie that came out just kind of out of nowhere. Adrian Pasdar is one of the other people in it, but he's not in Aliens. But yeah, just overall, it's just a very competently made movie. The main character doesn't succeed at the expense of everyone else. Like, again, coming back to Vasquez, Vasquez doesn't succeed at Drake's expense. Vasquez clearly sees Drake as an equal and vice versa. And because, like, once he just gets like hit with the acid, she's all like, "No, we got to go save him." Now, like, sucks to be him. She's like, "No, we got to go save him." And they're like, "No, no, he's gone. Like, he's dead. Like, we can't." And you can tell she was pissed off about that. But the other way you can tell that she's clearly competent, she's the one that takes point whenever they go in at the very beginning. Like
Yeah.
they wouldn't let her do that if she wasn't competent. So you got that. You've got all the character acting, like from Bill Paxton.
Game over,
Yeah,
man.
especially that scene. Yes. And then Hicks. What am I trying to think of there, Jim? Uh, in the Terminator movies. Well, the first one anyway, and deleted scenes of the second one. Kyle Reese. What's his
Yes,
name?
I.
Anyway, he wasn't originally supposed to be in the movie. James Remar was supposed to play that part, but he got over there to England, and apparently they have some really quality heroin over there, and he got busted. And so he was out, and James Cameron just called him up. It's like, hey, I need you in England. Get over here. He's like, I'm on my way. And I think it wasn't until he got there, he was like, so what are we filming? So yeah, it's just a very well made movie, and it's an example of like if you want just an example of how to make a movie, watch that movie. There's plenty of others back in the '80s, but like it's action, but it's not like Arnold and Stallone like over the top single indestructible guy action. It's like no, these people get hurt by regular things constantly or killed for the most part, and yeah, like it's just really really well done. So anyway,
I've got nothing on the movie front, so I will let you.
yeah, I've probably rambled off long enough about that.
Well, actually, there was one thing, and it was just a small tidbit because you mentioned Jack Nicholson, and I guess originally Jack Nicholson did not want to do the Joker role, and they went and offered it to Robin Williams.
Really?
And then when Jack Nicholson heard that, he goes, no, I'll do it. And I guess the way they did that to kind of, I guess, prod Jack Nicholson to do it, and Robin Williams was pissed by it. And I guess for a while they wouldn't do any movies with Warner Brothers because of it until they apologized.
Yeah, I'd be kind of pissed off. Boy,
So
what an alternate timeline that would have been.
that's like the Last Action Hero timeline where Terminator was played by Sylvester
Stallone. Yeah. Yeah. Now there's a quality misunderstood movie.